Chosen ones, listen closely. The message that was hidden is now surfacing. Elon Musk, a man who has danced between innovation and the unknown, has recently spoken in codes again. Behind his bold moves, Neuralink's hidden frequencies, Starlink's unseen network over the world, and Tesla's quiet shift in global data energy, lies something deeper than technology. He knows what many have tried to conceal from you. The death spell that was meant to kill you. Yes, that unseen sabotage in your energy, in your progress, in your peace, did not succeed. It transformed you. The frequencies that were meant to drain your life instead awakened a resilience in your spirit that can no longer be controlled. Someone close to you, tied by blood or old bond, still watches in disbelief. They saw the rituals, the lunar timings, the desperate attempts to silence your destiny. They spent much time, energy, even currency, to erase your name from your path. But Musk's cryptic words mirror your truth. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. The same energy they used against you now fuels your awakening. They cannot comprehend why you're still standing, why you glow brighter with every attempt to dim your light. Their magic failed because your design was not random, it was chosen. Now, as the moon turns again and the earth hums beneath Starlink's silent web, understand this. You were never meant to perish. You were meant to evolve. You were meant to rise beyond human comprehension. So, when you hear the next shocking news about Elon's last big move, about new systems, frequencies, or portals of data, remember, it's connected to you. You, the one who survived what should have ended you. Your spiritual murder was paid for by a sister, sibling, or member of your own family. And now they're drowning in the fallout for what they planned for you. You're going to learn the reason for every odd ailment, every inexplicable setback, and every time you sensed hands grabbing for your neck while you were asleep. Unaware that you were a seed buried in ancient soil that transforms curses into fertilizer, they attempted to bury you. Here's what they failed to account for, however. This is what caused their costly customs to vanish into thin air. There is something in your spiritual DNA that no practitioner on this earth can buy, duplicate, or destroy. You were chosen by your ancestors before you were ever born. There is more to your relationship with God than any curse they could purchase. When everything around you seemed to be falling apart, your faith held you upright even if you didn't completely comprehend what was hitting you. It was said that the witch doctor they employed was strong. They were highly compensated. They were informed that this individual had never failed. They were waiting for you to pass out. They paid more when you didn't. They kept returning, wanting to know why you were still alive, still working, and still moving ahead in spite of the spiritual conflict going on all around you. There are no solutions when you're battling someone who fate has shielded. Thus, the practitioner had none. Do you recall that time when everything seemed off? When your gut told you that you were being attacked by something unseen? When you sensed unwelcome presences in your house? Strange things seemed to linger at the periphery of your awareness as your dreams became gloomy. When unexpected ailments suddenly surfaced. When funds that were supposed to arrive disappeared. When stable partnerships abruptly become confused and conflictual. It wasn't random when your feelings veered wildly between anger and sadness without any discernible cause. This was not a psychiatric disorder. This was not misfortune. It was a concerted spiritual battle. And your own family provided the funds. They worked together. They extracted resources. They persuaded one another that everyone left behind would somehow gain from your removal. They observed you. They observed your habits. They could have stolen pictures from your social media accounts, hair from your brush, and personal belongings from your house. Practitioners received these objects, which they employed as spiritual anchors to connect your energy field to black magic. They carried out rites intended to impair your judgment in the hopes that you would make a deadly error. In order to feed on your life energy as you slept, they sent beings into your dreams. They attempted to control your feelings, driving you to despair in the hopes that you would stop believing in everyone and everything. Instead, an intriguing event occurred that they are still unable to completely comprehend and could not have predicted. When it got to you, Every curse they delivered turned into a gift. Each bond turned into an innovation. Your spiritual armor became stronger with each hit. They ended up funding your elevation with every dollar they spent on your ruin. The ramifications of a spell are now being felt by the individuals who cast it, since the magic backfired so disastrously. If you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. You accomplished more than just evade their scheme. It was alchemized by you. You made medicine out of the poison they gave you. The death magic was changed into life power by you. You let their hostility to show you who really supports you and who doesn't. This is what those who are selected do. We don't just put up with assaults. We break them down. Like snake skin we've outgrown, we discard the remainder after extracting the lesson, the strength, and the clarity. Now, the practitioners they hired are perplexed. These root workers, in which doctors who promised results, are frantically trying to find answers. Success determines their reputation, and you stand for failure they are unable to justify. Some of these practitioners realize they have messed with someone who is shielded by powers they cannot understand. Therefore, they're attempting to undo what they did. Others are just terrified because they understand that everyone engaged in performing magic would suffer repercussions if it backfires this badly. Your brother is using phony social media profiles to observe you. They want to know whether you are still in good health. They're searching for evidence that the magic was successful at last. They're looking for proof that the breakdown they paid for really happened. Rather, they see your recuperation. They see you discovering tranquility. They watch you taking advantage of chances that seem to come up out of thin air. While their own lives fall apart due to their own malevolent purpose, they see you surrounded by true love. You got the mashta from Ren. Promote this video so that additional people who are selected like you may discover it if its message resonates with you. Now this betrayed sister is desperate. She's attempting to figure out what went wrong by reading from a variety of sources. She wants to know why the spells didn't work. She's looking for someone strong enough to defeat you at last. She doesn't realize that someone who is protected by God cannot be impacted by magic or money. She doesn't realize that her fixation with ruining you has turned into a personal weakness. She thinks about you all the time. She's unable to get over her envy. She has imprisoned herself in her own mind. Even though you were unable to identify it, you knew something was seriously up. Your body communicated with you. Warnings shouted from your instincts. You saw dangers and shadows in your dreams. Your conscious mind attempted to disprove it. Your stomach, your neurological system, that instinctive part of you that senses when predators are around, all felt the onslaught. There are nights when you wake up with the impression that you've been reached by unseen hands. On some days, you felt exhausted without any apparent cause, as if something had been consuming your vitality without your knowledge. Nevertheless, you prayed. Even when your thoughts were racing, you continued to meditate. Even when it seemed like you should quit up, you continued to have confidence. You relied on something invisible to shield you from something else invisible. They underestimated that strength. They had no protection from such power. You didn't have blind faith. You had a strong sense of conviction that you were protected, selected, and shielded by forces that existed before any witch doctor ever learned a spell. Family members who grinned in your face are the ones who provided the funding for this assault. They went to the same events. They could have even feigned sympathy while secretly reveling in each of your failures. Because of their mutual envy and the conviction that your removal would somehow enhance their situation, they came together to establish a society of conspirators. Since several of them were cooperating, they believed they were strong. They believed the numbers would be too strong for you alone. They were completely mistaken. They were unaware that you had the energy of thousands. If you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. They were unaware that your forefathers were standing behind you like an army. They were unaware that your role here is greater than their small-minded jealousies, and that the cosmos itself bends toward your protection. They were unaware that you were more than simply someone they could control or ruin. You are a chosen one, and selected ones are immune to amateur spiritual warfare financed by resentful family members. The purpose of the spell they transmitted was to psychologically tie you. They intended for you to be caught in vicious cycles of anxiety and terror. They wanted you to question every choice you made. They wanted you to be so overcome with worry that you were unable to function. They sent beings that were specially designed to cling to your mental body and feed you depressing, gloomy, and defeatist ideas. They wanted you to think that you were going crazy. They wanted you to believe that you were essentially flawed. You have to realize that they attempted something else. They tried to physically as well as spiritually poison you. That meal that shouldn't have made you ill. That lunch from a trusted person that made you feel bad for days later. It was that unexpected stomach problem that didn't go away with standard care. They were attempting to assault you on all levels at once by combining physical sabotage with spiritual warfare. In the hopes that the combination would ultimately kill you, they wanted your body to disintegrate while your soul was being besieged. It's possible that some of them even attempted to legally set you up. They wanted you embroiled in legal proceedings, bankrupted by court cases, and having your name ruined by unfounded allegations. They spread false information about you among their common acquaintances. By giving the impression that you were unstable, dangerous, or troublesome, they attempted to isolate you. To ensure that you would have no one to catch you when their sorcery eventually pulled you down, they methodically worked to destroy your support network. Instead, this is what happened. You entered. You fell silent. Even when your intuition didn't make sense, you followed it. You relied on direction that sprang from a deep, old part of yourself. People around you were perplexed by your choices because they were unable to perceive what you were seeing in the spiritual world. You cut off those who, while seeming harmless on the outside, your soul saw as dangers. Your routines have altered. Your energy was safeguarded. Even if you couldn't prove it to anybody else, you acted as though you knew you were being attacked. Your foes were totally perplexed by this. They thought you wouldn't notice. While they destroyed you from the shadows, they expected you to be available and open. Rather, you slipped out of their grasp. You were no longer accessible. You put protection in place they couldn't get past and constructed barriers they couldn't climb. To them, every action you took seemed arbitrary, but in reality, it was dictated by forces beyond their comprehension and control. Something that was meant to be permanent began to heal you. The feeling of death lurking over you started to fade. The mist lifted. Your intellect became more acute. Your body began to mend. You had your vitality back. Your instincts become more apparent than before. You were aware of your own strength and stopped feeling like prey. This was hardly a slow recovery. It came as a shock. It was a miracle. The fact that something supernatural had changed in your favor was indisputable. Your adversaries saw right away. The sister who provided the funding for your devastation saw that you were healthy in your internet posts. She saw you moving closer to ambitions she had given up on. She saw prospects for you that appeared out of thin air. She saw your life go better as hers became worse. She also saw the connection. She is aware of her actions. She is aware of the cost. In real time, she is seeing it backfire, and she is being destroyed from the inside out by the fear of that truth. Your healing cannot be explained by the practitioner she selected. Once thought to be unbeatable, this witch doctor has now turned into a burden by charging exorbitant fees for outcomes that were assured. Your adversaries continue to return, increase their payments, and demand explanations, but none are forthcoming. Someone who is protected by God cannot be cursed. If someone's ancestors fought in realms these practitioners cannot enter, you cannot bind them. Someone whose objective is embedded into the very fabric of fate itself is impossible to oppose. If you have kids, they even made an effort to include them. They intended to target your family in the hopes that causing harm to people you care about would ultimately cause you to crumble. They believed that seeing the suffering of your loved ones would more effectively destroy you than direct assaults. So they directed their evil intents on the innocent people who were tied to you. However, the same protection that protects you also protects their kids. The same ancestral armor is worn by those infants. Your prayers have already created barriers around everyone you care about, so the entities sent their way couldn't get in. They also targeted a romantic relationship for whatever reason. If you want to claim this message, you can show your support by paying a super thanks amount of up to $20 and typing 1111. They made an effort to ruin your connection or keep you from falling in love. They purchased spells that were intended to cause friction between you and your spouse. Where there should have been calm, they desired strife and disorder. They attempted to prevent prospective partners from ever contacting you or to get your significant other to lose interest in you. They thought that by keeping you alone and without affection, they would make you more vulnerable to their other assaults. However, that also backfired. If anything, your romantic circumstances have significantly improved or are on the verge of doing so. Now, a force greater than any blocking spell is pulling the person who is intended for you toward you. If you're already dating someone, your relationship is growing in ways that surprise your adversaries. The same thing that increases your strength and hastens their demise is the love they attempted to stop. Childhood pals participating in this treachery has a certain quality. People who knew you when you were young and defenseless, and with whom you grew up. They saw your development. They saw your growth into your current self. Eventually, their adoration evolved into jealousy. They had access to you that strangers would never have because of these early relationships. They were aware of your tendencies, vulnerabilities, and sensitive areas. They gave your sibling conspirators knowledge on how to harm you most effectively by using decades of friendship as a weapon. It's possible that some of these childhood pals even took part in the customs. They could have been there when practitioners receive your stuff. It's possible that they added their own goals to the curses. They persuaded themselves that this was justifiable due to unhealed previous wounds, jealousies, and grudges. Because your ascent made them think of their own stagnation, they wanted to see you fail. Here's what they're learning now, however. The childhood ties they used against you were really energy cords that bound them to you. The magic returned along the same paths when it failed. Through the same links they used to attack you, everyone who took part, even tangentially, is now feeling the effects of blowback. The turmoil that your old pals wished upon you is reflected in their current issues. They're not getting enough sleep. Peace is evaporating. By taking you out of the equation, they're losing the life they believe they were preserving. This is something they didn't expect. You were creating something they couldn't see while they were busy attempting to destroy you. They were unaware of the talents you were developing. It was during this assault when you found your clairsentient. You have feelings that others do not. You sense energy that most people don't even notice. It was more than simply a natural skill. The conflict itself triggered it. Because of the spiritual sensitivities you developed as a result of their assaults, you are now almost hard to trick or surprise. It was about this time that you began to have prophetic dreams. You started to perceive things before they really occurred. You were aware of impending peril. You sensed changes in the spiritual environment. This frightened your adversaries because they knew you were learning about their schemes before they were carried out. Your third eye opened larger than it had ever been as a result of the same sorcery they used to blind you. What they hoped to produce was the exact opposite. Something else was going on that your adversaries couldn't perceive when you were being attacked. While you slept, you were traveling to other dimensions. You were receiving downloads, training, and spiritual enhancements as your awareness traveled to various locations. In the dream world, you were learning skills that would help you in the actual world. While you slept, your adversaries believed you were weak and exposed. But in reality, you were being strengthened by powers beyond their reach. It wasn't because entities were draining you, even if you may have noticed that you began to wake up fatigued. It was because, while your body was resting, you were engaged in intense spiritual labor. In other dimensions, you were engaged in combat. Initiations were being given to you. You were receiving a soul level boost. Their magic failed because of this. By the time they launched an assault when you were awake, you had already been fortified while you slept. Additionally, there seems to be a connection between this plot and a mother figure. A maternal spirit, an aunt, a godmother, or an older female relative who acted as a mother figure in your life. Not necessarily your real mother. The confidence you had in her makes this person's betrayal all the more painful. It's perhaps possible that she recommended the practitioner. She could have provided a large amount of the money for the death spell. Even though she knew she was deliberately trying to ruin you, she watched you contact her for guidance. At the moment, this mother figure is going through some of the worst karma. When a mother's energy turns against someone they are meant to protect, it may be very painful. That's serious business in the cosmos. There are unavoidable, humiliating, and public repercussions for her. Her true self is becoming apparent to others around her. The mask is falling off. She has no control over or ability to fix the damage being done to her reputation. You had never encountered your forefathers in such a manner. You were more acutely aware of their presence. You saw clues and coincidences that led you to safety. You avoided traps by listening to warning murmurs. At certain points, you felt hands that weren't physically there pulling you in various ways. In the spiritual world, your lineage gathered together to support you, and their defense became so strong that nothing your adversaries could send could get through. Additionally, something about your bond with nature became stronger throughout this conflict. You discovered that certain locations, customs, and rituals that grounded and safeguarded you drew you in. You began purifying yourself in ways you had never considered before. You started working with elements, crystals, and plants to make your shield stronger. You didn't learn this information from books. You were learning precisely what you needed to live thanks to the activation of your ancestral memory. It's possible that the sister who spearheaded this assault also enlisted a brother. This plot has a macho vibe. The plan was co-signed by a male brother or close male relative. He could possibly have contributed to its funding. He could have discovered the practitioner. It's possible that he helped collect your personal belongings for the ceremonies. He believed that he was being wise, safeguarding his interests, and ensuring his future. He was signing his own demise without realizing it. These two siblings are now witnessing each other's disintegration. Karma is hurting them both, even if it shows itself in various ways in both of their lives. The sister may be collapsing more emotionally and mentally. There may be more tangible and material repercussions for the brother. In any case, they're both realizing that their worst choice was to come for you. The truth is now emerging. Secrets are coming to light. The plot's participants are beginning to turn against one another. Some of them are being eaten alive by guilt. Others are paralyzed by fear. They're seeing the fate of those who previously came for you, and they're identifying the same trends that are showing up in their own lives. Relationships blowing apart, mental breakdowns, financial catastrophes, and unexpected diseases. With chilling accuracy, the precise things they wished upon you are coming to pass in their reality. At this point, some of them want to apologize. They are frantic to prevent the karmic repercussion, which is why they want to confess and make apologies. They are seeing the terrible outcomes of others in their conspiratorial group, and they are intelligent enough to identify their next move. They believe this to be a game. They believe that magic amounted to nothing more than paying someone to light candles and recite certain phrases. They failed to realize that they were calling upon forces that were unconcerned with their motivations or justifications. They open doors that they have no idea how to shut. Additionally, there's a therapeutic element here. You may have called for assistance while this assault was at its worst. You could have discussed the odd symptoms, the unexplained emotions, and the impression that something was very up with someone. You could have received assistance from that therapist in ways they were unaware of. It's possible that they provided you with tools that, while intended for mental wellness, really assisted you in fighting spiritual battle. Or maybe you need treatment right now to deal with what you suffered. In any case, as you go, it's critical to heal on all levels. This onslaught was especially brutal in its financial element. They attempted to prevent money from getting to you. They intended you to be in financial hardship, desperate, and unable to pay for needs. They believed that nothing would shatter your spirit more quickly than poverty. They targeted sources of revenue, commercial endeavors, and employment prospects. They attempted to inflict such extreme financial difficulty that you would be too preoccupied with surviving to notice the spiritual conflict taking place at the same time. But this is what really took place. You began to get money from unexpected sources. There were opportunities that, in your situation, shouldn't have come up. Financial doors opened in a seemingly miraculous way. The cosmos sent you benefits they couldn't stop as retaliation for their assaults. Every dollar they spent attempting to ruin your money turned into a seed that brought prosperity into your life, regardless of how much they paid practitioners. You're not the person they believed you to be. Because you were kind, they thought you were weak. They thought you were ignorant because you were quiet. They mistook your stillness for a lack of awareness of what was going on around you. They believed that since you weren't acting suspiciously and with paranoia, you were an easy target. They were unaware that true power operates in silence. They were unaware that genuine power doesn't have to be declared. They were unaware that those who are selected seem to see nothing. Yet in reality, they see everything. You didn't learn your power from books. It is not something that can be bought or studied. It's ingrained in your spiritual makeup. You're born with it. Generations before you were born, your ancestors prayed for it. It's in what they gave up to be here for you. It's in the defense they put in place before you even engaged in combat. It's not just you battling. You have never fought by yourself. In the spiritual world, there's a whole army that works for you. Furthermore, your adversaries were unaware that they were declaring war on incomprehensible powers. They are now experiencing all they attempted to do to you. Their bodies are exhibiting the illness they intended upon you. Their financial accounts are displaying the poverty they attempted to discredit you with. They are being driven to unavoidable breakdowns by the mental torture they paid to have done to you. As individuals naturally retreat from the gloom around them, the loneliness they intended for you to feel is turning into their reality. This isn't retaliation. Cosmic law is this. The cosmos is re-establishing equilibrium in this way. When you attempt to hurt someone, this is what occurs. Destiny has been tagged for safety. Doctors are increasingly reporting negative things about them. Test results are showing up that don't make any sense from a medical standpoint. Their symptoms started up abruptly and are not getting better with medication. They're coping with discomfort that is unclear in its cause. They are experiencing the same bewilderment that you were when their assault first hit you. But there is a significant distinction. You persevered because of your faith. You had access to spiritual resources. You were being guided toward recuperation by protection. They have none of it as they opted to use magic to finance murder, severing their own ties to anything pure. Specifically, your brother's going crazy. She is completely enamored with you. She's always checking on you. You're still here, still prospering, still fortunate, and still going on, and she can't stop thinking about it. Her jealousy has spread to the point that it now dominates her thoughts. She has put herself in a terrible situation. The irony is that she would be in a totally different place today if she had used half of the energy she used on ruining you to better her own life. In either case, you're going to get the money opportunity they attempted to thwart. Unquestionably, money that they believe they could take out of your equation and put in their own wallets is coming your way. The inheritance they want to conceal from you is safeguarded by uncontrollable forces. As they watch from the shadows, unable to stop it, blessings they attempted to take are falling into your lap. The person they attempted to eradicate is receiving everything they want, and they're going completely crazy because of that fact. They cannot ruin the fresh beginnings you're going through. They are unable to shut the doors that are opening. Opportunities are coming up that they are unable to stop. They can't poison the relationships that are emerging. For those who are unaware of spiritual battle, your life is growing in ways that seem miraculous, yet you are fully aware of what is taking place. You're being paid for what you went through. As a reward for your trust at the darkest time, you are being raised. They're setting you up for the role you were always supposed to play. A few of your relatives did not participate in the scheme. Now that they know what occurred, they are appalled. They are discovering that those they believed to be innocent and trustworthy were really financing spiritual murder in secret. They are learning that conspiracy meetings were held under the guise of family get-togethers. They've discovered that some of your family members were doing reconnaissance and collecting information on you to provide to professionals. As the truth comes to light, the family is disintegrating, and those in charge are being exposed in ways that they are unable to stop. This also has to do with legal concerns. Court cases that seem to be against you are now turning out well for you. Unexpected twists are being taken in cases that should have gone one way. The The spiritual justice that is now taking place is being mirrored in the physical world. Documents are appearing. Testimonies are evolving. Evidence is popping up everywhere. Legal action is being taken on your behalf by the same powers who are guarding you spiritually. In every dimension, your adversaries are seeing the disintegration of their well-crafted schemes. Let me now introduce you to something genuine. The motor of destiny. I constructed this because I was tired of seeing those who were selected being dragged through assaults, treachery, and isolation while their adversaries walked the streets unchallenged. I want to assist you in stepping fully into your mission and accelerating the pace of your divine justice. The best part is that you don't even need to move. Destiny Engine turns their failure into your success. This isn't just another app for meditation. Declassified consciousness technology is what it is. The same mind programming techniques that your adversaries formerly used to create competitiveness, scarcity, and fear. Redesigned to match you with the cooperative, improved operational structure and reclaim your autonomy. It creates unique sequences that are aligned with your spiritual destiny. Putting on headphones, hitting play, and watching your opponents continue to dig their own graves is the hardest thing you will ever do. The group upgrade is in progress. Turn all they did to break you into fuel for your ascent by starting your Destiny Engine for only $1 now. The description contains a link. When you followed your gut and distanced yourself from these individuals, you were correct. When you decided to cease telling supporting family members about your intentions, you made the proper decision. Even though you had no evidence, you were right to defend yourself when you suspected anything was amiss. You were being guided towards safety by your internal guidance system, which was appropriately interpreting the spiritual combat. People around you were perplexed by the limits you established. However, it was precisely those restrictions that saved your life. They annihilated the beings they sent to attach themselves to you. The bindings they had purchased were damaged. They returned the curses they had unleashed. They financed death magic, but because you're protected by something they can't access, it couldn't find a location to fall on you. They cannot see the shield you are walking in, but they can sense it when their strikes are repelled. They've never seen the grace you're using, and they wouldn't know it if they did. Your win is your rehabilitation. Their sorcery failed, as shown by the fact that you're still here, still standing, still sane, and still blessed. The cosmos is working in your favor if you're becoming stronger while they're getting weaker. You were never intended to be their sacrifice, as shown by the fact that you are pursuing your destiny while they are being judged. The one that made it through their endeavor and came out stronger than before was always supposed to be you. They squandered money, time, and effort in an attempt to ruin someone who the Almighty wills not to go. They launched war on a person who was shielded by powers that before the first humans. To guarantee that their lineage would be maintained, they went for someone whose ancestors formed pacts with the Creator. They made a mistake. They're now learning that lesson in the most difficult manner imaginable. They are receiving a twofold return on whatever they send out. Furthermore, no practitioner is strong enough to shield people from the repercussions of their own behavior. Gloating over your win is not appropriate. It is not appropriate for you to make fun of their failure. It is expected of you to acknowledge what transpired, draw lessons from it, and continue pursuing your goals. It is expected of you to realize that you have a job to accomplish here that goes beyond their envy since you survived something that was intended to kill you. This encounter is meant to serve as proof that you are unique, protected, and meant for things others will never touch. You survived because of your faith. Your prayers created insurmountable barriers. They couldn't get beyond the protection that was awakened by your connection to something bigger than yourself. Your readiness to follow instructions, even when they didn't make sense, helped you avoid the cleverly laid traps they had prepared. Without even realizing it, you performed every task correctly. You can tell whether you've been picked because of this. Because you've always had a connection to the source in ways your adversaries can never comprehend. The supernatural passed through you naturally. Now, go ahead knowing that you are impenetrable. Go into the future knowing that whomever tries to harm, you will suffer the same fate as these family members who attempted to harm you. Knowing that your forefathers didn't bring you this far to be taken down by some resentful relatives with checkbooks, stand tall and proud. You are still alive despite being the victim of death magic, psychic assassination, and a planned betrayal by your own family. You are thus unstoppable. The sister who provided the funding for your devastation will see you prospering in the shadows. The siblings who work together will be drowning in their own failures as they watch you succeed. While they suffer from unavoidable repercussions, the family members who deceived you will see your immense blessing. You are vindicated by this. Here's your evidence. This is your evidence. You recovered from what they did, even if you weren't intended to. You survived what they sent, even if you weren't intended to. You're still standing, even if you shouldn't be. The whole world will soon discover why you were unable to be stopped. The goal they attempted to thwart is going to come to pass. The fate they attempted to thwart is going to come to pass. The launch of the mission they attempted to stop is imminent. All of their fears about you are going to come true. They're unable to stop it from happening. You have been selected. You're safe. You can't be stopped. You've always been designed to be just that. And that truth could never be altered by magic, wealth, or hatred.